Princess Zareth stood before the massive crystal window in her father's throne room. Her body shimmered like living gemstone in the purple light of their twin suns. The document in her hands felt heavier than a mountain. She read the words again, hoping they would change. They did not. "A marriage contract," she whispered. The crystal walls around her picked up her voice and made it echo like music. With a human. Her father, Emperor Kethfer, sat on his throne made of singing crystals. His ancient face showed no emotion. He had lived for 3,000 years and had seen many things. But Zareth was only 200 years old. She was still young by their people's standards. "The Galactic Council has decided," the Emperor said. His voice was calm but firm. "This union will bring peace between our empire and the Terran Federation." Zareth crushed the document between her crystal fingers. "Father, you cannot be serious. Humans are barbaric creatures. They live only 70 or 80 years. They destroy their own planet. They fight wars over stupid things. They are nothing like us." "The Council believes otherwise," her father replied. "These humans have impressed many species. They control important space routes. Their military has defeated enemies that other races feared to face. Because they are violent." Zareth's voice rose higher. The crystal walls sang in response. "They solve every problem with weapons and force. They know nothing about culture or art or wisdom. How can you ask me to marry one of these savage apes?" Emperor Kethfer stood up slowly. His crystalline body was tall and elegant. Light passed through him like he was made of the finest glass. "Daughter, you speak of things you do not understand. The humans may be different from us, but they are not weak. The Galactic Council would not propose this alliance if humans were truly barbaric." Zareth turned away from her father. She looked out at the crystal city below. Towers of living gems stretched toward the sky. Gardens of crystal flowers sang in the wind. Flying vehicles moved silently between the buildings. Everything was beautiful and peaceful. This was civilization. This was what her people had built over millions of years. "What do humans of that we need?" she asked. "We have lived in peace for 1,000,000 years. Our technology is far beyond theirs. Our people live for thousands of years while they die like insects. Why should the Velshari Empire lower itself to deal with such creatures?" "Because the galaxy is changing," her father said quietly. "New threats are coming. The Void Hunters have destroyed 3 star systems. The Machine Collective grows stronger each year. Old enemies are making new alliances. We cannot stand alone anymore." Zareth had heard about these threats. The Void Hunters were mysterious beings that consumed entire worlds. The Machine Collective was an army of robots that wanted to turn all life into metal and circuits. There were rumors of other dark things moving in the deep space between stars. But why humans? She asked. Why not the Altarians? They are wise and peaceful. Or the Zentari. They have powerful psychic abilities like us. Why choose the most violent species in the galaxy? Because, her father said, when the Void Hunters attacked the human colony world of New Geneva, the humans did not run. They did not surrender. They fought until the last ship was destroyed. And somehow, they won. A human fleet defeated enemies that had destroyed civilizations far older than theirs. Zareth had heard this story. It was hard to believe. The Void Hunters were supposed to be unbeatable. They moved through space like a disease, eating everything in their path. But the humans had stopped them. Many species were still trying to understand how. One victory does not make them worthy of our alliance, Zareth said. It probably just means they are too stupid to know when they should retreat. Or, her father said, it means they have something we need to learn. Zareth spun around to face him. Her crystal body flashed with anger. What could those short-lived primitives possibly teach us? We have mastered telepathy. We can live for thousands of years. Our bodies are made of living crystal that can withstand almost any attack. We have built a civilization based on harmony and beauty. What do they have that we lack? Emperor Kethver walked to another window. He looked out at the space beyond their world. Stars twinkled like distant jewels in the darkness. Perhaps, he said slowly, they have learned things from their short lives that we, with our long existence, have forgotten. That makes no sense, Zareth said. Does it not? We have lived in comfort for so long. When did we last face a real challenge? When did we last need to adapt quickly or die? Humans face death every day of their short lives. Perhaps that makes them stronger in ways we do not understand. Zareth shook her head. I will not marry one of them. I refuse to be a tool for politics. Find another way to make this alliance. There is no other way, her father said. The humans have specifically requested a marriage bond. It is how they seal their most important agreements. Their leaders marry their children to allies. It is their custom. Then let them marry someone else, Zareth said. I will not do it. She turned and walked toward the door. Her crystal feet made no sound on the singing floor. But her father's voice stopped her before she could leave. If you refuse this marriage, the alliance will fail. Other species will see us as weak. The Void Hunters will come for us eventually. And when they do, we will face them alone. Zareth paused at the door. She did not turn around. Then we will fight them with honor, as our ancestors would have. Our ancestors, her father said quietly, never faced anything like what is coming. Zareth left the throne room without another word. She walked through the crystal corridors of the palace, her mind spinning with anger and confusion. Servants bowed as she passed, but she barely noticed them. The very idea disgusted her. Humans were crude beings who lived such brief lives they could barely learn wisdom before they died. They fought each other constantly. They polluted their own world with chemicals and garbage. They had only just learned to travel between stars, while her people had been exploring the galaxy for millions of years. How could her father ask her to bind herself to such a creature? The marriage would last far longer than the human's entire lifetime. She would watch her husband grow old and die while she remained young. It was cruel and pointless thought. As she reached her private chambers, Zareth made a decision. She would meet this human that the council had chosen. She would show him exactly why this marriage was impossible. And then she would send him back to his primitive little world where he belonged. 3 days passed before the human ship arrived. Princess Zareth spent those days learning everything she could about humans. What she discovered only made her more disgusted that she sat in the palace library, reading report after report. The crystal walls around her glowed softly, responding to her mood. Ancient books floated in the air, their pages turning by themselves as she read. Her advisor, Master Quinder, brought her more files. These are the latest intelligence reports about human behavior, he said. His old voice was full of concern. Your Highness, I must say that everything I have read confirms your doubts about this marriage. Zareth took the floating documents and began to read. The first report made her stomach turn. It described human wars that had killed millions of their own kind. Pictures showed burning cities and destroyed landscapes. Humans had invented weapons that could destroy entire planets. Look at this, she said to Quinder. They fought a war that lasted 6 years and killed over 60 million humans. And this was just one war among many. They have been fighting each other for their entire history. Indeed, Your Highness. And look at this report about their home world. Quinder pointed to another document. They have poisoned their own air and water. They cut down forests that took centuries to grow. They hunt other species until they become extinct. How can such beings understand the harmony that our people value? Zarath read about something called the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, an area of ocean filled with human waste that was bigger than some countries. She read about humans who killed animals just for fun, or cut down entire forests to make money. They seemed to destroy everything they touched. Here is something interesting, Quinder said, floating another report to her. Humans typically live only 70 to 100 years. In that short time, they often change their opinions completely. A human who believes one thing today may believe the opposite tomorrow. They call this growing up or maturing, but it shows how unstable their minds are. How can you trust someone who lives such a short time? Zarath asked. Our people spend the first 50 years just learning to control our crystal abilities. Humans are already adults by that age. They make important decisions with the minds of children. Exactly, Quinder agreed. And because they live such short lives, they are always in a hurry. They make quick decisions without thinking about long-term consequences. This is why they destroy their environment and fight so many wars. Zarath found another disturbing report. It described human emotions, wild feelings that could change in minutes. Humans could be happy one moment and angry the next. They made important decisions based on these changing emotions instead of logic and wisdom. Look at their mating habits, she said, pointing to a sociological study. Humans often marry and divorce multiple times in their short lives. They call it falling in love and falling out of love, as if love is something you can trip over. How can I bind myself to a being who might change his mind about our marriage after a few years? The report suggests that human males are particularly unstable, Quinder added. They are physically stronger than their females, and they often use violence to solve problems. Most human wars are started by males. Their history is full of male leaders who conquered other nations just to prove their power. Zarath stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the crystal city sparkled in the purple sunlight. Everything was peaceful and beautiful. Her people had built this civilization over millions of years of careful planning and wise leadership. They had never fought wars among themselves. They had never destroyed their environment. They lived in harmony with nature and each other. What kind of human do you think they will send? She asked. Based on these reports, probably a military commander, Quinder replied. Humans seem to respect physical strength above intelligence. Their leaders are often generals or warriors. He will probably be covered in scars from battles. He might even wear weapons to our first meeting. Or perhaps a politician, Zarath said. Someone who thinks he can manipulate me with clever words. Humans are known to be very cunning when they want something. Either way, Your Highness, you should be prepared for someone who sees this marriage as a business deal. Humans often marry for money or power instead of love. He probably cares nothing about you personally. You are just a way for his people to get access to our technology and resources. Zarath felt anger building in her crystal body. The walls around her began to glow brighter, responding to her emotions. How dare these primitive creatures think they could use her as a bargaining chip? I will make it very clear to this human that the marriage will not happen, she said. I will show him exactly what it means to insult a princess of the Velshari Empire. How will you do that, Your Highness? Zarath smiled, but it was not a kind smile. I will demonstrate our superiority. When he sees what our people can do, he will understand why this marriage is impossible. She raised her hand, and the crystal walls around the library began to sing. It was a beautiful, haunting melody that seemed to come from the very stones themselves. The floating books danced in the air, their pages glowing with soft light. Flowers made of living crystal sprouted from the floor and bloomed in seconds. Humans have no abilities like this, Zarath said. They cannot make crystals sing or grow flowers from stone. They cannot live for thousands of years or speak to each other with their minds. They are clumsy creatures who need machines to do what we can do with thought alone. True, Your Highness. But remember that humans can be dangerous when they are angry or desperate. They might try to use force if you reject them too harshly. Let them try, Zareth said. Her crystal body hardened, becoming like diamond. Our bodies are stronger than their strongest metals. Their primitive weapons cannot hurt us. If this human tries to threaten me, he will learn why our people have never been conquered. Quinder looked worried. Perhaps it would be wiser to be diplomatic, Your Highness. We do not want to start a war with the entire human federation. There will be no war, Zareth said confidently. Once this human sees how outmatched he is, he will go home and tell his leaders that the marriage is impossible. They will have to find another way to make their alliance. She walked back to her reading chair and picked up another report. This one described human technology, crude machines that burned fossil fuels and created pollution. Their fastest ships were slower than Velshari vessels from 1,000 years ago. Their computers were less intelligent than a Velshari child. Look at this, she said to Quinder. They still use metal and plastic to build things. They have not learned to grow living crystal like we do. Their buildings are dead things that cannot repair themselves or respond to the needs of their inhabitants. Indeed, Quinder agreed. And their medical technology is primitive. They cannot regrow lost limbs or repair damaged organs the way we can. Many humans die from diseases that our people cured millions of years ago. Yet somehow, Zareth said quietly, they defeated the Void Hunters. Perhaps that was just luck, Your Highness. Or perhaps the reports about that victory were exaggerated. Zareth nodded, but something bothered her about that battle. The Void Hunters had destroyed civilizations that were far more advanced than humans. How had such primitive beings managed to win? She pushed the thought away. It did not matter. Whatever the humans had done, it did not change the fact that they were crude, violent, short-lived creatures who had no business trying to marry into the noble Velshari bloodline. Tomorrow, the human ship would arrive. Tomorrow, she would meet this human male who thought he could claim her as his bride. And tomorrow, she would send him home with a very clear message about the impossibility of their union. Prepare the formal reception hall, she told Quinder. I want everything to look perfect. I want this human to see exactly what kind of civilization he is trying to join. When he realizes how far beneath us he is, maybe he will have the wisdom to withdraw gracefully. As you wish, Your Highness. As Quinder left to make arrangements, Zareth returned to her reading. But her mind kept returning to one question. How had the humans defeated the Void Hunters? What did these primitive beings have that other, more advanced species lacked? She would ask this human tomorrow, just before she sent him away. The human ship looked ugly against the beautiful crystal spaceport. Princess Zareth watched from her balcony as the metal vessel landed with loud engines and clouds of smoke. Everything about it was wrong. The sharp edges, the gray color, the noise it made. Velshari ships were grown from living crystal and moved silently through space like swimming fish. Even their ships are barbaric, she muttered to herself. She had dressed carefully for this meeting. Her crystal body shone with inner light, and she wore flowing robes that caught the purple sunlight like liquid starlight. Around her neck hung the crown jewels of her house, crystals, that had been grown over thousands of years and contained the wisdom of her ancestors. She wanted this human to see exactly what kind of royalty he was dealing with. The formal reception hall was perfect. Crystal pillars stretched up toward a dome that showed the stars overhead. The floor was made of singing stones that played soft music when people walked on them. Floating gardens drifted through the air, their crystal flowers releasing sweet scents. Everything was designed to show the beauty and power of Velshari civilization. Master Quinder stood beside her throne. The human delegation has arrived, Your Highness. Shall I bring them in? Yes, Zareth said. She straightened her back and put on her most regal expression. Let us meet this warrior who thinks he can claim a Velshari princess. The great doors opened with a sound like distant thunder. Zarath expected to see a large, scarred human male in military uniform. She expected weapons and armor and the crude manners of a soldier. She was ready to reject him with icy dignity. Instead, a human female walked into the hall. Zareth blinked in surprise. The human was smaller than expected, with dark skin and short black hair. She wore simple clothes in blue and white, not a military uniform, but something more like the robes of a scholar. No weapons were visible. No armor or medals or signs of military rank, but what shocked Zareth most was how the human moved. She walked slowly, looking around the hall with obvious wonder and respect. Her eyes were wide as she studied the crystal pillars and floating gardens. When she reached the center of the hall, she stopped and bowed in the traditional Velshari manner, not the clumsy attempt of someone who had just learned the gesture, but the perfect, graceful bow of someone who understood its meaning. Your Royal Highness, the human said in perfect Velshari language. I am Elena Vesquez of the Terran Federation. I come before you with respect and humility, seeking understanding between our peoples. Zareth's mouth fell open. The human's accent was flawless. More than that, she had used the formal speech patterns that only someone with deep knowledge of Velshari culture would know. How was this possible? You speak our language? Zareth asked in common Galactic, too surprised to maintain her dignity. Elena straightened from her bow. I have studied Velshari culture for many years, Your Highness. Your people's achievements in art, science, and philosophy are legendary throughout the galaxy. I consider it an honor to speak your beautiful language, though I fear my pronunciation is still imperfect. This was not what Zareth had expected at all. She looked at Elena more carefully. The human's eyes were intelligent and kind. Her face showed no signs of the aggressive arrogance that Zareth had been told to expect. Instead, Elena seemed genuinely nervous and respectful. You are not what I expected, Zareth said slowly. Elena smiled, and it was a sad smile. I imagine not, Your Highness. I suspect you were expecting a military commander or a politician. Someone who came here to claim you as a prize or make demands in the name of political alliance. Yes, Zareth admitted. That is exactly what I expected. Then I must begin with an apology, Elena said. She bowed again, this time even deeper than before. The Galactic Council presumed too much when they arranged this marriage contract without consulting your wishes. No one should be forced into marriage for political reasons. Your refusal was both justified and wise. Zareth stared at her. This human was apologizing for the marriage proposal? She was agreeing that it was wrong. I do not understand, Zareth said. If you agree the marriage should not happen, why are you here? Because I wanted to understand why you refused, Elena said simply, and to see if there might be other ways for our peoples to work together. The galaxy faces many dangers, and both humans and Velshari have much to offer each other. But cooperation should be based on mutual respect, not forced political bonds. Zareth felt her prepared speeches crumbling in her mind. She had been ready to lecture this human about the superiority of Velshari civilization. She had been ready to demonstrate her powers and send him away in shame. But Elena was not behaving like the crude barbarian that Zareth had expected. Sit, Zareth said, gesturing to a crystal chair that grew from the floor. Tell me about yourself. What is your position among your people? Elena sat gracefully, her movements showing proper respect for the living furniture. I am a xenobiologist and cultural anthropologist, Your Highness. I study other species and how they live. I have spent most of my life learning about non-human civilizations. You study other species? Yes. I believe that every species has developed unique solutions to the challenges of existence. Humans have much to learn from others. The Velshari, for instance, have achieved something that my people can barely imagine. A civilization that has lasted for millions of years without destroying itself or its environment. Zareth felt confused. According to all the reports she had read, humans were supposed to be arrogant and self-centered. They were supposed to believe they were superior to other species. But Elena seemed to admire Velshari achievements. Your reports about humans suggest that your people are different from you, Zareth said carefully. Elena's face grew sad. I fear those reports are accurate about some humans, Your Highness. We are a young species, and we have made many terrible mistakes. We have fought wars, damaged our environment, and caused great suffering. These are shameful parts of our history that we cannot deny. Yet you speak of them honestly, Zareth observed. Lying about our failures would only make them worse, Elena replied. How can we improve if we do not admit our mistakes? How can we earn the trust of other species if we pretend to be perfect? This attitude was completely different from what Zareth had expected. The reports had said humans were deceptive and manipulative. But Elena seemed painfully honest about her people's flaws. Tell me about the battle with the Void Hunters, Zareth said. How did your people defeat enemies that destroyed civilizations far older than yours? Elena was quiet for a moment. It was not a glorious victory, Your Highness. We lost many ships and brave people. But we learned something important during that battle. What did you learn? That working together is more powerful than fighting alone. The Void Hunters expected us to run or surrender like other species had done. Instead, every human in that system, military, civilian, young, old, worked together to find a solution. Our short lives meant we had to think quickly. Our history of conflict taught us how to adapt fast when everything goes wrong. Elena paused, then continued. But the most important thing was that we did not give up. When the situation looked hopeless, we kept trying new ideas. Other species might have accepted defeat with wisdom and dignity. Humans are too stubborn or too stupid to know when we are beaten. Despite herself, Zareth almost smiled. You call your people stubborn and stupid? Among other things, Elena said with a small laugh. We are also loud, messy, emotional, and often foolish. We make many mistakes because we act quickly instead of thinking carefully like the Velshari do. But sometimes, our flaws can become strengths in the right situation. How can flaws become strengths? Because we are used to adapting to problems, Elena explained. When something goes wrong, humans do not spend time mourning what we have lost. We immediately start looking for new solutions. Our short lives mean we cannot afford to waste time on things we cannot change. Zareth considered this. It was an interesting idea, though it still seemed crude compared to the careful planning her people preferred. Dr. Vasquez, she said formally, what do you hope to accomplish by coming here? I hope to build understanding between our peoples, Elena replied. Not through forced marriage, but through genuine cooperation. Humans need to learn wisdom and patience from the Velshari. Perhaps we can offer some small things in return, our adaptability, our different perspectives, our experiences overcoming challenges. And if such cooperation proves impossible? Elena stood and bowed again. Then I will return to my people and recommend that they respect your wishes. No one should be forced to work with humans if they prefer not to. For the first time since the marriage proposal had arrived, Zareth felt curious rather than angry. This human was nothing like what she had expected. Elena showed wisdom, humility, and respect for other cultures. She admitted her people's flaws honestly, while still believing they had something valuable to offer. Stay for dinner, Zareth found herself saying. I want to learn more about your people. Not the reports and studies, but what they are really like. Elena's face lit up with a genuine smile of gratitude. It would be my honor, Your Highness. The dinner lasted far longer than Princess Zareth had planned. As crystal servants brought floating dishes of light food that glowed with inner radiance, she found herself asking question after question. Elena answered each one with thoughtful honesty, never trying to make humans sound better than they were. Tell me about your childhood, Zareth said as they shared a dish of crystallized starfruit that tasted like pure sunlight. I grew up on a farming colony called New Island, Elena replied, carefully using the proper Velshari eating gestures she had somehow learned. My parents grew food crops for the inner worlds. It was hard work, but I loved learning about how different plants adapted to our new soil. Adapted? Yes, Earth plants do not grow well on other worlds at first. But over time, they change to fit their new homes. Some grow stronger roots to reach water. Others develop thicker leaves to protect against harsh sunlight. Life finds ways to survive and thrive, even in difficult places. Zarad had considered this. Velshari do not need to adapt. Our crystal bodies allow us to live on any world. That is a wonderful gift, Elena said with genuine admiration. But adaptation has taught humans to be flexible in our thinking too. When one approach does not work, we try another. And another. We keep changing our methods until something succeeds. That sounds chaotic. It is, Elena laughed. Humans are very chaotic. But chaos can create unexpected solutions to problems that careful planning cannot solve. As the evening continued, Elena told stories about her work studying other species. She had lived among the tree-dwelling Ithrians for 3 years, learning their complex language of wind sounds. She had studied the hive mind colliery to understand how individual identity could exist within group consciousness. She had even spent time with the energy beings of Proxima, translating their thoughts into concepts that physical species could understand. How do you do this? Zareth asked. How do you learn to think like completely different kinds of beings? Practice, Elena said simply, and a willingness to admit when I am wrong. When I first met the Ithrians, I thought their wind language was just noise. I spent months trying to teach them human speech instead of learning their way of communication. I was being arrogant without realizing it. What changed your mind? A young Ithrian named Keshel. She was trying very hard to speak human words, but she kept making mistakes. I was getting frustrated with her. Then I realized she was not making mistakes. She was speaking perfectly in her own language, and I was too ignorant to understand the difference. Elena paused to sip from her crystal cup, which sang a soft note as the liquid touched her lips. That day, I stopped trying to teach and started trying to learn. Within a month, I could have basic conversations in wind speech. Within a year, I was dreaming in Ithrian concepts. This ability to change your thinking, is this common among humans? More common than you might expect. Humans who travel to other worlds have to adapt quickly or they cannot survive. We learn to eat new foods, breathe different air, live under strange suns. After a while, adapting to new ideas becomes as natural as adapting to new environments. Zareth found this fascinating. Velshari rarely needed to change their ways of thinking. Their crystal bodies let them live anywhere, and their long lives meant they could afford to take centuries planning each decision. But humans, with their short lives and fragile bodies, had to be ready to change quickly when circumstances demanded it. Dr. Vasquez, she said formally, I had been wondering about something. The Galactic Council arranged this marriage because they believe human and Velshari cooperation could benefit both species. But I have seen nothing in our conversations that suggests humans need anything from us. You seem to have solutions for most problems. Elena set down her cup and looked serious. Your Highness, you could not be more wrong. Humans desperately need what the Velshari have achieved. What do you mean? Wisdom, long-term thinking, the ability to build something beautiful and lasting. Elena gestured around the crystal hall, which was now glowing softly with evening light. My people build things that last decades or centuries. Your people build things that last millions of years. We destroy our environment through carelessness. You have lived in harmony with yours since before humans existed. Elena leaned forward, her eyes intense. Do you know what the average human city looks like, Your Highness? Concrete and steel buildings that start cracking after 20 years. Streets filled with vehicles that poison the air. Garbage dumps that grow larger every year. We have the technology to build better, but we are always in too much of a hurry to do things properly. Then why do your people not change these things? Because we think in short terms. A human leader serves for 4 or 8 years, then is replaced by someone with different ideas. Our businesses focus on quick profits instead of long-term sustainability. Everything we do is rushed because we know we will not live long enough to see distant consequences. Elena stood and walked to one of the crystal pillars. She placed her hand on its surface, and the crystal sang a deep, resonant note. This pillar will stand here long after every human alive today is dust. It will sing its song for 1,000,000 years or more. How do you build something like this? Time and patience, Zareth replied. The crystals are grown slowly, over decades. Each layer is carefully nurtured and shaped. The process cannot be rushed. Exactly. And humans are terrible at patience. We want everything done quickly, even when quick solutions create bigger problems later. Zareth was beginning to understand. You are saying that humans need to learn long-term thinking from the Velshari. Yes, but more than that. Elena returned to her seat. We need to learn how to create beauty that lasts, how to live in harmony with our environment, how to make decisions based on wisdom instead of emotion or greed. And what could humans offer in return? Elena smiled. The ability to solve unexpected problems quickly. Different perspectives that your people might not consider. Fresh approaches to old challenges. She paused, then continued more hesitantly. And perhaps most importantly, the urgency that comes from knowing our time is limited. Velshari can afford to spend centuries studying a problem before acting. Sometimes that is wise. But sometimes, when danger is coming fast, you need people who are willing to try imperfect solutions immediately instead of waiting for perfect ones. Like the Void Hunters. Exactly like the Void Hunters. The Velshari response would have been to study them carefully, understand their nature, and develop a perfect defense over many years. A wise approach that would have saved many lives in the long run. But they would have destroyed many worlds while you were studying them. Yes, humans chose to fight immediately, with imperfect weapons and incomplete understanding. We lost many ships and people, but we stopped them quickly. Neither approach is always right. The best solution would combine human speed with Velshari wisdom. Zareth considered this carefully. She had always thought of human impulsiveness as a flaw, but Elena was suggesting it could sometimes be a strength. Quick action was dangerous and often led to mistakes, but it could also prevent disasters that careful planning could not stop in time. Dr. Vasquez, what specific projects do you think our peoples could work on together? Elena's eyes lit up with enthusiasm. So many things, Your Highness. Environmental restoration, for example. Humans have damaged many worlds through careless colonization. Velshari crystal growing techniques could help heal those wounds, while human adaptability can help the crystals thrive in damaged ecosystems. She leaned forward eagerly. Or communication technology. Humans have developed translation devices that work quickly between many languages. Velshari telepathic abilities could help these devices understand meaning and emotion, not just words. Imagine being able to truly communicate with any species in the galaxy. What about exploration? Perfect example. Humans are eager to explore dangerous regions of space that other species avoid. Velshari ships and technology could protect human explorers, while they gather information about new threats or opportunities. Combined expeditions could go places that neither species could safely visit alone. Elena paused, then spoke more quietly. There is also the matter of cultural exchange. Humans need to learn patience and long-term thinking. But perhaps Velshari could benefit from learning to embrace change and adapt to new situations more quickly. You think we are too slow to change? Not too slow, Elena said carefully. But change is coming to the galaxy, whether we want it or not. The Void Hunters, the Machine Collective, other threats we have not yet discovered. Species that cannot adapt quickly enough may not survive what is coming. Zareth felt a chill at those words. Her people had remained the same for millions of years, believing that their perfection made change unnecessary. But what if the galaxy around them changed so much that their old ways no longer worked? You are suggesting that human chaos and Velshari order could balance each other. I am suggesting that both have value, Elena replied. Alone, human chaos destroys things. Alone, Velshari order can become stagnation. Together, they might create something new and better than either could achieve separately. As the evening ended and crystal servants cleared the floating dishes, Zareth realized that her understanding of humans had completely changed. Over the next 5 days, Princess Zareth spent every waking hour with Elena. They visited the Crystal Gardens, where Velshari grew their living buildings. They toured the memory archives where the wisdom of millions of years was stored in singing stones. They walked through the city markets where artisans shaped light itself into beautiful forms. But what amazed Zareth most was not Elena's reaction to Velshari wonders. It was how quickly the human understood not just what she saw, but why it mattered. In the healing gardens, Elena studied how crystal plants absorbed harmful radiation and turned it into nourishing light. This could help worlds damaged by war, she said excitedly. Planets where the soil has been poisoned by weapons or industrial waste. If we could teach these crystals to grow in other environments. The crystals are alive, Zareth explained. They cannot simply be moved to other worlds. But could they adapt? Elena asked. All life wants to survive and spread. If we gave them reasons to want to grow on damaged worlds, new nutrients to process, new forms of energy to use, they might develop ways to thrive there. Zareth had never thought of this. Her people preserved their crystals exactly as they were, perfect and unchanging. But Elena was suggesting that controlled change might make them even more useful. In the memory archives, Elena listened to the songs of ancient stones and asked questions that surprised the archivists. How do you decide which memories to preserve? She wanted to know. Do you ever update old knowledge when you learn new things? We preserve everything exactly as it happened, Master Librarian Velanash replied. Truth does not change, but understanding does, Elena said gently. What if you could tag each memory with new insights as they develop? Not changing what happened, but adding layers of meaning as your wisdom grows? The librarian looked shocked. Changing the memory archives was unthinkable. But Elena's suggestion was not to alter truth, but to enhance understanding. It was a very human idea, building on the past instead of simply preserving it. On the third day, they visited the communication center where Velshari telepaths spoke with other worlds. Elena was fascinated by their ability to share thoughts and emotions directly. Human translation devices can convert words, she said, but they miss so much meaning. Body language, tone of voice, cultural context, all lost. Telepathy requires a crystal nervous system, the chief communicator explained. Organic beings cannot develop this ability. Directly, no, Elena agreed. But what if we created hybrid devices? Human technology to capture and transmit the basic information. Velshari telepathy to add the emotional and cultural context. Other species could understand not just what someone says, but what they really mean. Zarath watched Elena work through this idea in real time. The human saw problems and immediately started imagining solutions. Not perfect solutions that would work in all cases, but practical ones that could be built quickly and improved over time. On the fourth day, Elena presented something that stunned everyone. She had been working through the night, using her portable computer to design what she called a cultural bridge system. "Look," she said, projecting images into the air above her device. "Instead of just forming political alliances between species, what if we created permanent exchange programs? Young humans could spend years learning Velshari patience and wisdom. Young Velshari could experience human adaptability and urgency." The images showed mixed crews on exploration ships. Humans and Velshari working together on environmental projects, and most remarkably, a new kind of city that combined crystal growth with human engineering. These buildings would grow like Velshari structures, Elena explained. But they would also adapt quickly to changing needs like human buildings do. The crystal foundation would last for thousands of years. But the living spaces could reshape themselves as their inhabitants' requirements changed. Emperor Keth for himself came to see Elena's presentation. The ancient ruler studied the designs carefully, his crystal face unreadable. "Dr. Vasquez," he said finally, "these ideas are unprecedented. You suggest fundamental changes to how both our species approach construction, communication, and cultural development. Not changes." "Your Majesty," Elena replied respectfully. "Expansions. Everything that makes the Velshari great would remain. But by adding human adaptability, you might become even greater. And humans would benefit how? By learning to think beyond the next few years. By building things that last. By understanding that wisdom comes from patience, not just from quick thinking." The Emperor was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke to Zarath. "Daughter, what do you think of these proposals?" Zarath had been dreading this moment. She knew her father was asking whether she was ready to abandon her opposition to human alliance. But Elena had shown her something she had never expected to see. That differences could create strength instead of conflict. "Father," she said carefully, "I believe Dr. Vasquez has shown us a path to cooperation that does not require political marriage. Her ideas could benefit both species without forcing anyone into unwanted bonds." Elena turned to look at her, hope and gratitude shining in her human eyes. "However," Zarath continued, "these projects would require years of close collaboration. Someone from our people would need to work directly with human scientists and diplomats. Someone who understands both cultures and can help them learn to work together. Do you have someone in mind?" The Emperor asked. Zara single quotes took a deep breath. "I volunteer for this position." The throne room fell silent. Elena's mouth dropped open in surprise. "You wish to work with humans?" Emperor Kethfer asked his daughter. "I wish to work with Dr. Vasquez," Zarath said clearly. "She has shown me that cooperation between species is possible when it is based on mutual respect and shared goals rather than political convenience." Elena found her voice. "Your Highness, I would be honored to work with you. But are you certain? This would mean spending years away from your home, living among humans who are very different from your people." "Dr. Vasquez," Zarath said with a smile, "you have spent your entire career adapting to alien cultures. Perhaps it is time for me to learn this skill as well. Over the next few hours, they worked out the details. Elena would remain as the first human ambassador to the Velshari, establishing permanent diplomatic relations. Zarad would become the Velshari Cultural Exchange Coordinator, working to build the cooperation programs Elena had designed. Their first project would be a joint expedition to the Nexus sector, where both species could study the aftermath of the Void Hunter attacks and develop new defense strategies. Human ships would provide mobility and adaptability. Velshari technology would provide protection and long-term sustainability. "There is one thing I must know," Zareth said to Elena as they walked through the Crystal Gardens on their final evening together. "When you first came here, did you truly have no interest in the marriage proposal? Or were you simply being diplomatic?" Elena stopped walking and turned to face her. "Your Highness, I came here believing that forced marriage was wrong, no matter what political benefits it might bring. I still believe that, but—" Elena hesitated, then spoke honestly. "But if we had met under different circumstances, if we had been allowed to know each other as individuals, instead of political symbols, I think we could have become close friends. Perhaps more, given time." Zareth felt her crystal heart warm. "I have been thinking the same thing. Strange how refusing an arranged marriage led us to something more valuable than either of us expected. Friendship built on choice instead of obligation." Elena agreed. "And partnership built on shared goals instead of political necessity." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the crystal flowers bloom in the evening light. Around them, the city hummed with the quiet songs of living stone and flowing water. "Dr. Vasquez," Zareth said eventually, "I have one more question about humans. Ask anything you wish. When you first learned about the Velshari Empire, what did you hope to find here?" Elena considered the question carefully. "Wisdom that humans lack. Beauty that lasts. A different way of seeing problems that might help us make fewer mistakes. And what did you actually find?" "All of that," Elena replied. "But also something I did not expect. I found that even perfect civilizations can benefit from fresh perspectives. That wisdom and adaptability can work together instead of against each other. And that the best alliances come from choosing to understand each other, not from being forced to accept each other." Zareth nodded. "When I first heard about this marriage proposal, I saw only the loss of my freedom and the degradation of our bloodline. I was wrong about both. There is no loss in choosing cooperation. There is no degradation in learning from others, even from short-lived, chaotic humans. Especially from short-lived, chaotic humans," Zareth said with a laugh. "You have taught me that perfect order can become stagnation. Sometimes, a little chaos is exactly what perfection needs to keep growing." The next morning, they stood together in the Crystal Spaceport, preparing for their first joint mission. Elena wore a new uniform that combined human practicality with Velshari elegance. Zareth had modified her royal robes to include human-style pockets for the portable equipment Elena had taught her to use.